morning, grinders. Welcome to RotoGrinders Today. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. Blender at BlenderHD. You're going to follow me on Twitter. And it's Tuesday, November 28th. We got a big 10-game NHL slate today. We got some basketball today. Not as much, right? Not much going on a Tuesday, right? NFL, not much. We'll be talking about that on Wednesday and on Friday. But hit that thumbs up button on your way in the door. Give me those thummy thumbs. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell to always know when we go live. Joined with me, the man that got me hooked, Tim. You got me hooked. I've been playing more NHL DFS than I've been playing any other sport. And there's soccer today at 3 o'clock on the Champions. I forgot about it. I'm like, I was more psyched for the 10-game NHL slate.
You're
than
more,
I'm like,
you're more into NHL than soccer.
Right.
Unbelievable. Yeah, I play heavier volume NHL than I do NBA.
NBA is just you have to be a masochist to play NBA DFS.
I mean, NBA that's tough. That's tough right now.
Although in NHL, sometimes you'll have the instances where later games. Yesterday, we weren't necessarily sure if Nathan McKinnon was going to play, and that would have been a very big deal. And then we had the Vegas lines were just all they put him in a blind. Right. Then now I understand. Now I finally, Tim, I understand when I search my name on RotoGrinders on Discord. Because every once in a while I'll go like, did anyone try to talk to me and not realize not to tag me? So I type in Blender, and I remember like months and years ago, it's like, oh, the hockey channel constantly is talking about blender. It's like hockey lines in a blender. And now I finally get what that means, that essentially, everything that you thought of who's paired on what line, they just kind of like threw into a mixer and then just said, here you go. This is what it's going to be tonight. And although from like a value perspective, a lot of times it doesn't change much, like from a point per dollar standpoint, because a lot of times the power play units are the same. But as far as like how you set up your, like for GPPs correlation wise, you end up with, oh, you thought these three guys were all going to be on the same line, and now one of them isn't anymore. And they may still be fine on their own, but like the whole point of playing 3 or 4 guys from the same team together is that they're all sharing the ice together. So when a goal gets scored, you're looking to get 20 points total rather than try to pick apart goal, assist on different lines and everything like that. So you do have to be cognizant of that. And you know where the best place to do that? The RotoGrinders Discord.
RotoGrinders Discord. And I wouldn't be shocked if Vegas puts their lines in a blender once again, given the fact that they lost last night. So teams like to usually play their same lines after a win. But if they're kind of in blender mode and they lose, they might just go right back to putting in a blender again. So I would be shocked if they put their lines in a blender once again.
Well, you said on the pre-show before we came on, you said that this is a very wide open slate tonight. Yeah. It's a 10-game slate. I mean, it's a little bit bigger than what we've gotten in the beginning of the season, like 14-game slates, but I've been playing a lot of these like 6-game type of slates. 10 games. I like that when ownership ends up getting spread out. But as we talked about before, that on the high end of the spectrum, we got Connor McDavid, we got Austin Matthews, we got Jack Hughes, we got Kucherov, Draisaitl, Eichel, we got Nylander, we got Toronto guys, we got Devils, we got Oilers. The problem I always find with these lines, very similar to like Avalanche, also who's not on the slate, is that to play their like power play one or top line, like you're pairing like multiple expensive players together. And to me, that gets you 2 problems. One, that they have to do a lot to get there altogether because they're all expensive. And number 2, it kind of funnels you into very similar like secondary players for, you're playing the value stack on the other side that you end up sharing very combinatorial ownership with other lineups that you're competing against. So on this slate today, I said beforehand, I mean, I've gotten used to NHL DFS that I can almost talk about it somewhat decently with you, Tim. That felt that Kucherov, the Tampa Bay power play line, because you could get Braden Point. Like if you take a look at if you do Point, like Point is what, 7,300, I believe. Like Point plus Kucherov plus Hagel, and Hagel is like 5,300. I think is so much for a very similar implied goal total. Much from a salary standpoint, much more bearable than trying to play like the Jack Hughes, power play one type of line, or the Toronto, like playing Connor McDavid, Edmonton #1 line, because that's expensive. So that's why, like, my first inclination was playing the Lightning, but I don't know. Do you see it another way?
Well, and the other thing is that you can do with the Lightning is that you can go Kucherov, Point, and Nicholas Paul, and leave off Hagel, because Hagel doesn't play on the first power play unit. So if you wanted to do, how much is Paul?
Paul is cheap. The problem with Paul is that that outside of, I like the fact that Paul, apparently they've now changed him to a winger and not a center.
Yes. Yeah.
So that helps, because a lot of times the problem with some of these, like Braden Point is a center, like to play Point and Paul, like you're giving up 2 center spots, and because we have 3 winger spots available, I prefer when players are wing eligible rather than center eligible, because there's 4 spots for wingers and 3 spots for centers. And a lot of times Paul, when I would play the Lightning, he's cheap, yes, but like outside of that power play unit, he really, like, being the center on the third line doesn't do much for you, right?
No, it's true. It just brings down the price of the stack. So, but yeah, no, I have no issue with Kucherov, Point, Hagel. I would also mention that I know that Toronto is expensive, but Florida is on second night of a back-to-back, and they should be starting their backup goalie. This is a road back-to-back. They're making their Canadian swing right now. So, Austin Matthews, I mean, he's obviously going to be our highest projected raw points skater, but I also think they're in a fabulous spot. And if you pair him with Nylander, that's pretty pricey. So I think that might keep that ownership a little bit in check.
Well, I think Morgan Riley is going to be one of the most owned defenders on the slate.
I think Morgan Riley will be one of the most owned defenders. I agree.
Right. Someone in chat says about plays on FanDuel, play Matthews and Nice, or Knees, or however you pronounce his name.
Yeah, Nice. Yeah.
What is your thought overall, heuristically? We're just talking about not very specific stuff about we have lines. Like I always go through the stacks page and kind of choose the lines that I don't mind playing, because I'm playing smaller field stuff, right? So I'm playing stuff that's 100 to 500 entry stuff, not the largest field things. And like my attitude is, like, for these guys, like I consider guys like Nyes, like sometimes depending on the line, Druin, like these guys that are like they're on the top line, but they're not in any power play unit, and they're like on a mega line with you're playing with McDavid and Draisaitl, and like you're like how many shot opportunities are you really, like, you have to like vulture something on a line that has a lot of like power on it. And then if you're not going to get any power play time, you see like your time on ice is like 15, 16 minutes, and you're playing with the top line, but like your ceiling is like a guy will be 3,200, and it'll be like he'll still only project for like a median of like 6.5 on like the top line. And these value plays end up getting, if you just like run lineup HQ and you just did like linear solving, you get a lot of these guys as like one-offs. And I almost feel like
I would not play those guys.
Those are the guys that you want in the stack, and you don't want.
Yes. You do not want guys like that as one-offs. Absolutely not. I would definitely look to trim those lineups out of your pool. You do not want the weakest link of your line to be a one-off. No, no way, no chance.
So I mean, that's what I've been doing when I've been sorting through my lineups. It's like, when I get those types of lineups, it's like I could even go into groups in lineup HQ if you wanted to, and you could set it up that, like, you take a look at, for instance, we take a look at, like, what's a good example today of a line that maybe like that? Edmonton,
Yeah, maybe possibly. I have to look.
like Ryan
They're always
McLeod or
changing.
something like. Okay, no, he's on the
Oh
third line.
yeah, yeah. You don't want to be one-offing McLeod.
Right. I'm just taking a look at, like, I mean, we could use Toronto as an example. I mean, like Matthew Nyes or whatever, like, he's on the power play 2 unit. He's like the cheapest guy in the 1 unit. Like, you could set up a group if you wanted to. I mean, I just look at the lineup and I just exit. I mean, like, I built 300 lineups and then I choose like the 5 that I'm playing. But like, you
Yeah,
could go into groups and you could go like if Matthew Nyes is in the lineup or something like that, like you could make it so that like Nylander, well, not Alex Nylander, but whatever, right? You could put Austin
what?
Matthews,
Yep.
right? You could
So
make it so
like
that
so like Edmonton 2. So Edmonton 1 is a stacked line. McDavid, Hyman, Nugent Hopkins, those are all very, very capable skaters. But like Edmonton 2, you've got Draisaitl and Kane who are pretty, pretty good. And then you have Connor Brown. Like
right.
Connor Brown is definitely the third wheel of that line. And I would have no interest. Like if you got to a one-off of Connor Brown, that would definitely be a guy that I would X right out as a one-off. Like if you want to use Edmonton too, that's fine, but don't use a guy like Connor Brown as a one-off.
Right. And you could go into lineup HQ even and do this type of thing of like, if Connor Brown is in the lineup, conditional player, you put Draisaitl and Kane together, and you just say you have to have at least one of these guys in your lineup, and like it prevents it as a one-off. Maybe you get 2 of them together, and if you want,
Yeah.
make sure that you at least you could do 2 to 3. You could put all the guys on the second line or the second power play line or everything like that, and say minimum 2, so you don't get those types of lineups. Now, obviously, like I said before, I built way more lineups than I need. So like you could go through and make all these types of groups. Me, I just look at the line and I go, well, I know I'm not playing Connor Brown as a one-off. So any lineup that I see out of my 300, I just exit. I just go, okay, that's not a lineup that I'm playing. Right. So you don't
Right.
necessarily have to go through and set up all these groups. But if you were making 150 lineups, I think it's definitely worthwhile, heuristically at least. I don't want to. The guy that's 3K that has to vulture something off the line, it's very rare, Tim, that guy puts up 30 fantasy points without his line mates like doing anything. Like that, the whole point is
It would
that
be like using like a 7 or 8 hitter as a one-off in a really good stack. And like saying, I'm not going to stack that team. I'm just going to use the 8 hitter as a one-off. Like
the
I
eight hitter that's not a power hitter, the slap
right,
hitting, right? You're
right.
hitting guy that relies on people being on base and getting a lot of plate appearances. It's like, well, if they do well, like they're not doing well because of 2 solo home runs. They're doing well because the bases have been loaded twice for them and everyone else on the team has scored.
Right.
So what else do you see on from a overall standpoint on today's
We need to
NHL
talk
slate?
we need to talk about Seattle. I think that they're going to project very, very well today. The one thing that I want to talk to people about with Seattle is usually power play 1 would play about 65 to 70% of the ice time, and then PP2 would get the rest. Well, with Seattle, they play their power play units almost exactly 50-50. So when you see a Seattle guy on like a PP2, that's not like the end of the world. Okay. Like their PP1 and PP2 are almost identical in terms of time on ice. So like, if you don't say, oh, I don't want to play this guy because he's on PP2, or don't say, oh, I don't want to stack PP2 because it's the second, power play. Well, with Seattle, they play almost 50-50 between their PP1 and their PP2. So, like, Seattle's in a fantastic spot today, and they're cheap. They will be popular. So if you're going to use them, maybe I would get different elsewhere with your, more premium lines. But don't be scared off of their second power play unit because it's a 50-50 split.
Don't be scared off their third line. Don't be scared off their.
Oh,
they play
I play that. I almost won the 400. Yeah.
Like to me, the best plays on Seattle I find are Bjorkstrand and Tolvanen, and they're on the third line. Yeah, Tolvanen plays on the power play 1. Bjorkstrand plays on the power play 2. But to me, like as one-offs, like these are two great one. Like these are one-offs. These are the guys that I want as one-offs. I don't want Matty Beniers as the one-off. Like to me, it's like I feel like I want to play him alongside the first power play unit or Vince Dunn, guys like that. Like Jared McCann, I don't mind as a one-off also, but like Alex Wenberg, I'm not playing as a one-off.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to play Wenberg as a one-off.
And then you got the guy. Then you got the example that we described before of like Brandon Tanev, like he's on the second line, and if you want to play like Wenberg, Tanev, and what Jaden Schwartz,
yeah,
right. Like to me, that's like the worst. Like I don't want to play guys that like are like the odd man out on the second line of Seattle, right. Especially when they're all cheap at like, do you really need a $2,700 winger on this slate? Like if you play some of these, look, there's no one on Seattle that's more expensive than what, 4,800, 5,300, something like that.
Yeah, they're all super cheap.
Right, Jaden Schwartz is 5,300.
Yeah. Like if you rank our point per dollar right now, we have Bjorkstrand number 2. We have Tanev number 6, but I still wouldn't play him. And then we have Tolvanen number 7, who I absolutely love. We've got McCann and Eberle like rounding out the top 10. So like these guys are really going to pop in terms of points per dollar. So that's going to bring their ownership up. But still, I think they're in a really good spot. And like I said, don't worry so much about the power play 1 and power play 2 situation.
Another team that I find similar to Seattle, but more expensive and frustrating is Carolina.
Yes.
Like to me, I felt like playing NHL DFS that if I just never played Carolina, I don't know if I ever get it. They always seem to be in good spots, but then it feels like the Commanders in NFL DFS or the Chiefs, where it's like, oh, they have a high implied total, but 7 people could score. Like it feels like you could play any of their one line, their 2 line, their third line, their power play 1 line. Like you could have all these combinations. They could score 5 goals and no one gets there. And like it's all spread out, and you feel like you're like, oh, I want to play Sebastian Aho, right? I want to play Burns. I want to play Jarvis or Nekas, and then I play them, and then like Svechnikov scores. Or like some like then you get the Michael Button scores on the 4th line. I'm sitting there going, yeah, the Hurricanes, they put up 5 goals and I lost. It didn't matter.
They did put up 5 goals the other night, and I had a one-off of Brent Burns who scored a empty net shorthanded goal, and then I stacked Seattle 3 with Colorado 1, and I almost won the $400 GPP that night. But yeah, like I almost never play a Carolina stack because they have 4 really competent lines. Like, NHL is like the ultimate team game, and Carolina really takes that, to heart, right? Like they really are a strong team up and down. So that's like really tough to decipher for DFS purposes.
Another team that is one of the heavier favorites today is Vancouver. And I know they've been running a little bit over expectation from an analytical standpoint, but at home against Anaheim, are we looking at them? I know Like what Kuzmenko has been out for 2 games. I
Yeah.
mean, we have him in the projections, but like
Yeah.
I take a look at that, him being a linchpin type of player that, like, why can't I play a Vancouver 2? Like,
You
I
absolutely
I
can.
prefer from a salary standpoint, I almost prefer Vancouver 2 over Vancouver 1.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And I prefer getting to Pedersen over JT Miller too. So yeah, there must have been a report saying that Kuzmenko is going to draw back into the lineup. Kuzmenko gets first power play run. So I mean, he's a fantastic value play. Yeah, I have no issue with Vancouver at all. I'd be interested to see what, I'd be interested to see, what ownership looks like. And like, because we have a lot of, I'd say high end stacks that to me are not in amazing spots. So it's like, um, like that, like Dallas and Winnipeg. I don't think that's a great game for DFS. Vegas and Edmonton. Like Vegas is a really tough team to play, but they are playing their second game in 2 nights against Edmonton. So like, I don't think McDavid is going to get a lot of ownership, Blender. How do you not take advantage of a low owned McDavid, right? Like he is such an explosive player. And if he's not going to get ownership, I mean, I think he's great for GPPs. Maybe not in like a small field, qualifier or something like that, but like in like the $15 or $20, if he's going to be like 7% owned, 8% owned, I would gladly get overweight on that.
How about compare him to the Devils with Jack Hughes? I mean, Nico Hischier is back. He's
Yep.
5,200. And I know a lot of people in our Discord, we caught that activated off of the IR. I did the thing of instead of playing Nico, I ended up playing Dawson Mercer, right?
Yeah.
Who ended up scoring that game. But Jack Hughes, 9,100 comparison. Like, I feel as if like the Islanders are looked at, from what I could gather, as a good defensive team, but that's the perception. So do you think that like someone like Jack Hughes actually goes lower owned than McDavid? Because I mean, you take a look at the Devils. I mean, who do you play? I mean, to me, the natural thing is like when you play Hughes now with Hischier back and Andrej Palat kind of moved lines. Like I always found the value in playing Hughes is because you could play a sub 4K Palat on like the power play 1 line. But if he's not going to be on the power play 1 line anymore, like what do you do here? I mean, now it's much more likely I play Mercer. He's wing eligible now. He shares the top line with Hughes. He's on the power play 2 unit. But like, to me, Jack Hughes, the guys that are like 9K like that, I think it's very important to get the line mates right, because for a 9K guy to hit a ceiling, like they're giving you like 3 or 4 points, like NHL hockey points, which means other people that are on the ice with him are also getting points. So for Jack Hughes to score 35 fantasy points, you probably don't want him as a one-off, right? You want to have guys on the line with him.
I will just say that the Islanders are way overperforming their defensive metrics. They lean very, very heavily on their goaltenders. Their goaltenders are running very, very hot right now. And the other thing is, guess who has the second worst penalty kill in all of hockey, Blender?
The fish sticks.
The Islanders.
I remember when they had the Gorton's Fisherman logo. I remember that.
So, what I like to do is, I mean, Nico Hischier is way too cheap at 5,200. I wouldn't mind doing a little New Jersey power play 1 with like Hughes and Hischier, and then maybe do like a Luke Hughes also. That would be like an affordable 3-man power play 1, you get exposure to both of New Jersey even strength 1 and even strength 2. I think, and I don't know a lot of people that are going to want to play Heischer and Jack Hughes together, because like they're like, oh, do I want a center from both 2 centers from one team? Well, this would be a great spot to do that.
And people will shy away, especially with Toffoli and Bratt, because it just makes the stack very expensive. To me, Toffoli and Bratt are the one-off candidates.
Yeah,
right.
I would agree with that. And they're pretty high volume shooters, so that I agree with that completely. But like Nico Hischier at 5,200 is in, like, he's usually, I think, like a $6,500 player. So he is way too cheap. He's way too cheap.
So you could play like power play 1. I mean, if you do like Luke Hughes, Jack Hughes, Hischier. I mean, truthfully, you could. I mean, if Heischer's on the second line, you could play Palat in this line. You can play Mercer in this line.
I personally would add Bratt or Toffoli just to continue on with your PP1. That's what I would do.
But then, because if you did that, I mean, you're stuck. I mean, you're basically playing Seattle at that point, right? 49.80, and then you add a goalkeeper.
But the thing is, it's okay to play Seattle if New Jersey's not going to be popular.
True.
Right. Like I'm not sure. I'm guessing New Jersey won't be popular because I think Sorokin is going to be a very, very popular goalie choice tonight because he's relatively cheap. He has great game logs. There is this common misconception that the Islanders are strong defensively. So I think Sorokin's going to be a very popular goalie choice. So I don't think New Jersey's going to get a ton of ownership. So you could play Seattle, I think, with New Jersey.
Right. Then you could play like Bjorkstrand. You play the power play 2 line. Right. You could do Bjorkstrand, either McCann or Eberle. Like you put in Dunn. Well, that's not a power play 1 line. You'll save your defender spot just to play a different team.
Yeah, like I would play Bjorkstrand and Tolvanen together. They play together at even strength, and they give you exposure to power play 1 and power play 2. So I would go Tolvanen and Bjorkstrand, and then maybe even add Gord if you can. So play that full Seattle 3 with a New Jersey power play 1. Depending on what New Jersey's ownership is going to be, I think that's a pretty strong team.
I mean, these look like the types of teams that I make anyway.
I'm curious to know, like, is Tampa Bay going to be higher owned? Is it going to be Edmonton? We know that Seattle is going to be the cheap chalk. It's the high end chalk that I'm not really sure. That's the part that's kind of spread out to me. Like that's the part where I'm not 100% sure who's going to be like the chalk. I mean, Toronto is probably going to be pretty popular. Like I wouldn't pair Matthews, O'Reilly, and then a bunch of cheap Seattle guys. That's like a cashy type lineup to me. I bet that'll be a very, very popular way to go about it tonight. But getting off of Toronto, and then going to like New Jersey, then I think you could play somebody like the cheap Seattle guys.
I think a team that's off the board, and we talked about it before. What do you think the ownership of the Wild is going to be? I feel like the ownership of this game. I mean, I don't want to play the Blues, but
no,
playing a Kaprizov, Zuccarello, maybe not Eriksson, but I mean, even plugging in one of their defense, like I take a look at their 1 line, right? Kaprizov, Zuccarello, and you play what, like Rossi, even if you want to get even cheap in there. Obviously, you know, not I don't play Rossi as a one-off type of guy, right? And you can play a defender. You
Right.
can play like Spurgeon at 4,100, right?
Spurgeon's a very good play. I think he's still power play 1 at
Right.
4,100. Spurgeon's a very, very talented, kind of does it all type player, blocks shots, shoots the puck. Great, puck mover also. So Spurgeon's a great play at 4,100.
But I feel like with these winger spots over here, like I could fit in. Like if I did this, if I did Wild with, and I spent up for Kaprizov and Zuccarello, and then I basically played the Devils that are not like Hischier, right? On power play 1 for the Ranger for the Devils. Let me take a look here, right? So you want to play the guys on the second line with him, or power play 1. Like you're not going to have money for Jack Hughes here. So like playing like the second line, right? So playing maybe not I'm not talking about the second power play line. I'm talking about the second line in general. So like playing Palat in this lineup with Hischier, right? Now you're 57-75. Maybe you pair the Wild goalkeeper, right?
Yeah.
Even though the Blues aren't really like, I'm just to plug in someone, right? An $8,100 goalkeeper. Like I feel like you have enough room here, like 5,000 remaining. That I mean, you can play. I mean, can you play? Like we could look. Can you play an expensive? Can you play someone like Jack Hughes in this lineup? Because you could play a cheap defender. Like I'm trying to find a way where you could use a team in the mid range, because I think a lot of lineups, especially in small field, are going to be barbell. Tim, they're going to play an expensive Edmonton line, an expensive Toronto line, an expensive, Vancouver line or Tampa Bay, and then plug in Seattle as the value on the other side. That, like, is there a way to do this so that you're in the mid range? So like you're not even hitting. You could play those guys as one-offs. So let's say you played Hischier and Palat. Like, can you even plug in like Jack? If you plugged in Jack Hughes, yeah, you're not going to be able to do that. But why couldn't you plug in someone like Dougie Hamilton at 5,900 into that spot and have Hischier, Palat, Hamilton? And then you have 4,550 left, and you could still play. You could play 12. You could play one of the Seattle guys, right? You could do something like this. You could play Rossi even in the Minnesota line.
Yeah.
Like, these are the type of lineups that I'd be looking at.
Yeah. How many Seattle guys do you want to use as one-offs, though? Like, are you worried?
I don't mind the score. To me, I don't mind Bjorkstrand. I don't mind Tolvanen, and I don't mind McCann. Like the volume shooter types and the guys that could score goals, like score 2 or 3 goals. But I don't want to use Beniers. I don't want to use Eberle. I don't want to use like those. I don't want to use the defenders that I'd rather have Spurgeon in this lineup correlated with my Wild than play like a Vince Dunn one-off. Because if Vince Dunn has a lot of fantasy points, it's probably because other people have scored and he has 3 assists, right? So I don't really want him as like that guy, because that means the chalky Seattle stack gets there.
Another mid-range type line would be Toronto 2. So you got John Tavares, who's 6,700, and Marner, who's 6,600. That would probably be leverage off of Toronto 1. They will come in at the fraction of the ownership of Toronto 1, and it still gives you exposure to Toronto's power play. I think they'd be interesting, like Mitch Marner, John Tavares. That's like an interesting like mid-range 2-man play.
Can you play? How about Tyler Bertuzzi with that?
Yeah, you can. How much? Bertuzzi is 4,100. Yeah, so he's cheap enough. Yeah. So I think you could play like Toronto 2 as like a mid-range stack.
Yeah, I mean,
that stack rates out pretty well, actually.
Yeah, I mean, it projects pretty well.
Yeah.
Right. 54-33 remaining. I mean, can you play? You could play Riley in this lineup. I mean, the defensemen
Yep.
they rotate differently. So like, I don't care. I'll play Riley in this lineup.
Yep.
To me, I want to fill as many spots correlated as possible. If given the choice between, like, why am I going to pay $5K for some other defender when I could just play Riley when I have 3 other Maple Leafs in my lineup? Right. It's very similar to goalkeeper. Like the goaltender, I typically pair with one of the lines that it's on if I'm able to. But sometimes you're not able. Sometimes it's like you're 200 off and you're just playing a one-off goalkeeper. It's like, okay, when the projection differences are within a point to point and a half, it's like the variance of goalkeeping is so high that most likely if Toronto scores a lot of goals, right, that means the Toronto goalkeeper at least gets the win and probably has saved a whole bunch of shots also. So yeah, there's some correlation there, but yeah, with 5,500 remaining, like if you put in Samsonov is going to start for Toronto.
I'm not sure if
That's what we
anything's
have in
been
the projection.
confirmed yet.
Right.
Yes. I think Joseph Wall is our projected right now.
Well, Samsonov's in the projections currently.
Okay. Well, we're in the sheet right now working on stuff, so you might have to refresh.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy the fact that it's taken me a month and I don't sound like an idiot talking about NHL anymore?
I mean, I never had any doubt. I had no doubt. This is a great sport for you. It's a great sport for anyone that loves DFS and is kind of over the whole, injury news, NBA stuff. And I think this is way more fun to like learn about stacks and pairing defenders and pairing your goaltenders. And like, to me, and I think it's a little bit less variance than baseball. So you can get like, you have a little bit more confidence in like, these guys are actually going to, produce fantasy points. Or in baseball,
except for Pasternak last night. What's up with that with the Bruins?
Yeah, well, the Bruins really laid the egg last night. That was pretty poor performance. I completely faded them, and I still lost.
I played one lineup, but I made sure yesterday, because this is another thing that I from like MLB style is that the expensive chalk guys I only play in stacks.
Right.
So like, and if you run lineup HQ when McKinnon has like an insane projection, it'll start giving you lineups that have like value plus McKinnon one off, value plus McKinnon one off. And my attitude is on like an 8-game slate, I'm not playing like a 28-30% owned McKinnon without like his line mates because I'm competing against that line. So like if McKinnon at 9K plus gets there, I want to have Rantanen. I want to have the Shuchkin or whatever his name is. I want to have, Makar or Toes or whatever the defender, I want to have his teammates with them. So a lot of times, like yesterday, I made a group that like Pasternak, like if Pasternak's in the lineup, I need to have at least one of like Zacha or Marchand or McAvoy or like I need people with him, right? And I did the same for McKinnon. And then what ends up happening is you find these lineups that like the ownership sum is low, but the projection is actually pretty decent. If you allow lineup HQ to make those lineups, but if you don't put that in, I'll run 300. If I didn't do that, because I did it the first time, I ran it, I got 78% like McKinnon. But I only had like 12% Colorado 1 stacks. So it's like, dude, like you're telling me that like out of my 300 lineups that I could choose from, 180 of them are McKinnon one-off lineups. I'm like, I'm going to delete those as it is. So why don't I just make a group so they just don't even happen? And then you compare the lineups that you made to each other and they're like a half a point different and they just don't have McKinnon. Like you're not having that barbell type of build. It's like you're sacrificing 1 point in projection so that all of your lineup has at least like an 8-point median on each player. as opposed to like one guy that has like 18, 19 and another guy that has like 5 or 6. And these lineups, you look side by side, and once you take away that like popular team's ownership, it's like, well, this lineup has a median of like 104. And this is a lineup that has a median of 103, but the ownership is like 50% off. So I'm like, I'm playing these lineups, right? Because you have to make those builds where you're playing teams that other people aren't. You're relying on, a team that has a middling projection, but once you pair these things all together, altogether, this does, from a median standpoint, rate out pretty well. You just have to be comfortable. Like, if you play the Wild tonight and they don't score, or they score 2 goals on weird players, like, you're just going to lose. Right.
Right. That happens. It's DFS.
Right.
So I think it's going to be Toronto's chalk, and then I think it's going to be Vancouver's second chalk.
I think Tampa. I think the Lightning come in over.
You think Tampa Bay comes in over Vancouver?
Over Vancouver.
Yeah, but definitely it's going to be Toronto as the chalkiest.
Yeah, I would say Toronto. If I had to, on the high end, that Seattle won. I think Seattle is 1.
Yeah,
that's going to be the value.
Yeah.
Okay, Seattle 1.
Yeah.
Then Toronto, and then Tampa Bay. Then I would say a mix between Vancouver and Edmonton. People will play People play Hyman. People play, you'll see a lot of like Nurse, and you'll see the Edmonton guys. Whether or not people are going to play the power play 1 unit as a whole, you're probably right. McDavid may be under 10% owned, but I think that all of the Edmonton guys will be somewhere between 5 and 10%. Like, it's not going to be one of these things where like any one, because people will play Draisaitl, people will play Kane, people play Bouchard, I just think these Edmonton guys get into your lineups. And then I think after that after that, maybe New Jersey, the Devils. But and then at that point,
Vancouver value is also popping pretty hard. So it's going to be Seattle value, Vancouver value. So I think like total, you're going to see a lot of ownership on Vancouver on the high end and the bottom end.
True. So this is a perfect night to play. This is a perfect night to play.
People are going to see that Vancouver has the only four goal total in the entire slate.
Does that matter that much? Do people?
I think it matters to people that want to see who has the highest total. It doesn't necessarily matter much to me. Like I want to fade some chalky pieces. So if Kuzmenko is going to be super chalk, maybe I'm going to look in a different direction. But I think people do care about team totals when they're building their teams.
And if Kuzmenko doesn't play again, that obviously, that upgrades Hronek to the power play 1 unit, right?
Yes. Yeah, that would, yes.
And that's going to be a 10 o'clock game. So good luck.
Yeah, but there must have been some report though for Dane to put him back in projections. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
So there must be something out there that says that he's going to be back in the lineup, Kuzmenko.
But if he's not, if something comes out throughout the course of the day where he's not, the projections get updated they get updated very, very quickly. The news is in the Discord.
We do them instantly. Like as soon as we see the news, we put them in projections instantly.
I love you guys because that's what I build lineups based on the projection. So like when I see the news in, I never have to ask, oh, is that already reflect? Oh, this line has changed to this and this. It's like, and then all I do is I reload lineup HQ and I see that it has like, dude, you just posted this like 30 seconds ago. How it's
sometimes you'll catch us on a weird break, for maybe 30 minutes, but that's it. Like as soon as it happens, we put it in projections.
RotoGrinders.com/Discord. You could get the Discord in the NHL channel for, I mean, that's free. You could join the Discord for free.
That's a fantastic free tool. You got to use it.
It shouldn't be free. It shouldn't.
I agree. I agree.
But Lineup HQ and the NHL projections are not free. You could click on the link in the description, get $10 off your first month of a RotoGrinders premium membership. You'll also get all the NHL content, that all the slates. You guys, you have a slate summary. You got an expert survey. So like, NHL is not. It's like soccer. We do soccer projections here at RotoGrinders. There's no content for soccer. You get the Champions League projections for today. And, of course, they have to get updated when the soccer lineups come out an hour before the game. So Tuttle and Jamino and Alex Hooper, they're doing all of that. But the NHL stuff is like, it's like you're playing any other sport. Like, you guys have written content and stuff that's out that, you know, Taylor describes this is how the slate looks like as a whole. You write everything up in the expert survey. So I enjoy reading that as well. And most of the time, what you're writing is reflected in the projections as it is, where, you know, good plays are good plays, and you're going to see, oh, yeah, because they project well.
Right. Yeah, and Dane does a fantastic job with everything and with ownership, too. So, I mean, ownership usually comes out around, I'd say, between 1 and 2 in the afternoon Eastern time.
Yep, I compare projection versus ownership. I make my lineups. I'm gonna today because of the qualifiers. I'm playing 9 lineups today.
There you go.
So I'm pushing and when they offer more contests, I like spreading it out a little bit more. So so a lot of times I've been playing 5 lineups, but those have been like slates where there's only 6 games. So I feel like 5 lineups.
You've been crushing it too.
Yes, yesterday was my worst day though. Yesterday,
it's gonna happen.
I know it's gonna happen. I know it's not. But like it feels like, at least I could go into Roto Tracker, that I think I may have played like 20 NHL slates. I think I've made money on 17 of them. And a lot of times, what I mean by make money is that I've won tickets that are worth X amount of dollars.
You've at least won equity, right?
Right, I've won equity, right? But yesterday was that was a minus 90% type of day. That was when you're playing when you're playing Rangers 2 and you won Boston 1 lineup and you're playing 3 Capitals power play lineups.
All your teams went 0 for 4 at the plate, right?
Right. I had one and that my Panthers lineup had Bennett but no Reinhardt, and I'm sitting there going. And then, of course, my Panthers lineup is the one that has Swayman in it, right?
Right.
At goalkeeper, right? That gives up goals and then leaves and just goes grabs a drink.
He gave up 2 goals and they pulled him, which is not a usual thing. The coach must have been mad at him about something. I don't really know what happened there.
So the scores were low. Like, it's not like I was in small field contests where, like, I scored like 77 and still managed to squeak in the cash line, like in like just barely. And like the large field scores were like 120, 131. Like if you got a 120 or 130 yesterday, you cleaned up.
Yeah, I put up 84 yesterday, which didn't miss by much.
Okay, Tim, where can people find you outside of the I would say they'll find you in the NHL Discord.
Yeah,
you're in the NHL Discord more than you are anywhere else.
That's right. Yeah, if you want to talk to me, hit me up on Discord. I'm always around. So definitely we can talk hockey whenever you want.
So join us there. Hit that like button on your way out the door. Give me those thumbs. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell to know when we go live. We got NBA stuff. We got and obviously NFL. I'll be on tomorrow. We'll be looking at previewing the week 13 slate tomorrow. I got Will on, TJ on later in the week for Showdown on Thursday. I guess Squirrel Patrol on Friday. We got, you know how it is here, right?
It's a loaded lineup, Blender. You got a loaded lineup.
Yeah, I like you on Tuesdays because Tuesdays seem to be NHL days.
It is Tuesdays and Thursdays, and Saturdays.
Thursdays got to share with football, though.
I know, yeah. We can't do that. Can't do that.
But Tuesdays alone, it's like if there weren't hockey today, I'd be fiddling my thumbs, going, "What do I have to play NBA?" I got Champions League soccer, but that's that's 3:00 in the afternoon. But Tuesdays, when Tuesdays come around, it's like, okay, give me this 10-game NHL slate, right? And then I like those. I prefer, Tim, if they just had like an 8 or 9 game NHL slate just every day. Like it was just that every day, rather than like Tuesdays and Thursdays. Here's like every team playing, and then like Monday, it's like here's a 2-game slate. It's like
we would love that from the projections point of view, also.
Okie doke. Hit that like button on your way out the door. I'll see you tomorrow, as I'm always here, Monday through Friday, 11 o'clock Eastern, talking about all things you're thinking about in daily fantasy, props, and pick'em on RotoGrinders Today.